Good evening, good morrow, and good day, and welcome to another campaign diary and Q&A here on Slice and Dice with the Manylands campaign. Today, we're going to be talking all about session 16, which feels like it was only yesterday, because for once it actually was. Our special Halloween stream, we streamed live yesterday here on the channel from 6 PM rather than our usual Monday. Partly because it was Halloween and we wanted to do a Halloween special in costume. As you can see, I'm now back in my civvies. But also partly and mostly because I was off ill with the flu on Monday. But fortunately, I'm in a lot better state today, and indeed I was yesterday. I took on the guise of the group's favourite barman, Jackman Candlecorn Winklebottom, the proprietor of Flaming Jack's Bar and Grill. Whereas all of the players dressed up as their characters, with the exception, of course, of Dan, who is away and has been away all of this week, so he had no fleeting look in costume, which is a shame, but I'm sure there'll be another time. We'll make sure there's another time. Anyway, talking about everything that happened during the yesterday's stream, all the stuff that you kind of won't have picked up on, or at least won't have picked up on the face of it, perhaps, and a bit more of a peek behind the DM screen about what else is going on in the world of the Manylands and what the idea behind certain aspects were, essentially. So let's begin. Actually, before I get into everything that happened in this session, firstly, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for supporting the channel, for getting involved in our first ever giveaway. There's still time to enter if you want to be in with a chance of winning a set of 3 free D&D badges courtesy of the Adventurers Gift Shop. All you got to do to enter is, if you're watching this live on Twitch, just comment in the chat with the word badges. As soon as you do that, you will be entered. Provided, of course, you're already following the channel. That is the only other stipulation. So once you do those things, you will be entered into the draw. The competition is still going on social media as well. So you've still got time to enter, but the lines will close. You know what I mean. We will the competition entries will have to stop. The deadline is Monday at 1 minute past midnight, aka end of Sunday, GMT, done. Like, no more entries from them, because then we'll be announcing the winner live on Monday's stream, which of course is not too far away. So yeah, you can see the details on how to enter on social media just by following us at slice&d6. Otherwise, as I said, comment in the chat right now with the word badges and throughout this little stream to be in the chance of winning those badges. A big thank you as well to our most recent followers, to Crying Zombie and to Titan 400 and Elf Daughter Crafts. Thank you all for following the channel. It's really very much appreciated, and I hope you tune in next time and continue to do so afterwards. One of the big eye-opening things of doing this first ever giveaway on the channel has been how it's actually reached out to more people, and more people have found us that way and have started tuning in to our stream, which is really great. It means a lot, and hopefully we will continue in that fashion. So we've been in talks with a couple of other little D&D businesses, and potentially we should have another giveaway starting in November. I will give you more details when I have them, but safe to say, the prize, if you thought badges were great, this next prize going to be even better for you D&D fans. So just keep an eye out, and I will keep you informed. So to this week's session, or yesterday's session I should say. So it was really the chance to open a new chapter, if you see what I did there, as it meant that the group could finally leave Flaming Jack's Bar and Grill and progress on to the next part of their adventure. And also it was the time for them to be introduced to what I call the starter town. Although it's already session 16, so they're way past starting. I had originally intended Hilberg to be like a starter settlement that you would commonly find in a lot of RPG campaign books. There's normally a starter settlement just to get you going with a campaign setting. So Hilberg kind of provides that function for the group. And obviously it depends on their decisions and where things go forward as to how long they remain in Hilberg, but there is plenty of adventure and intrigue oozing from that particular location, which they've only just scratched the surface on this week. But most of what this week was taken up with was the journey getting there, and also providing some of our characters with some of their much needed equipment, features, and so on. And that probably prime example of that was with Leobrin. As I'd mentioned on the campaign diary last time, he was due to, as he since leveled up to level 3, he was due to make a pact with his patron, being that he's a warlock. And so Marshall and I had discussed this and how it was best going to fit with the setting and with his patron, the Archfey. So basically, that was the reason why we had there's a lot more of a natural kind of reveal to Leobrin's pact, and he chose the Pact of the Tome. Wanted that to come across in a nature-centric way, because the Fae are all to do with nature and the wilds, and there's a kind of romanticised, glossy-eyed kind of view. Although with the Fae, we won't get into that too much today, but with the Fae generally there's a lot more mischief and a lot more whimsy as well. Wanted to get a kind of hint of that with his being introduced to his tome, and so that's why I described it as being made of leaves, and the writing inside it seemed to be magical. It was made of that it was written in Sylvan, which is the language of Loranlas, and in fact one of the languages, luckily, that Leobrin can speak, because he comes from there, meaning that basically if any of the rest of the party were to pick up that tome, they probably, because I'm pretty sure none of them do, because I've looked over their character sheets strenuously, I'm sure none of the rest of them could understand it, and even if they could, it would soon become apparent that it wasn't for them. You may also be wondering why we have the fuchsia flower within the tome. That's basically because that is a symbol of Leobrin's patron, that being Lady Aranth, first blooming, who is a Fae herself and of the Spring Court. And she, if you read up on Leobrin's backstory, which you can click on if you're watching live, you can click on his on the D&D Beyond Twitch extension, and you can click on Leobrin's picture, and you should be able to then navigate and find his backstory, and you can read that at your leisure. But basically, that should give you a fair idea of what of where of the Lady Aranth and their relationship, or not relationship. And the fuchsia flower is a token from her, and is indicative for Leobrin of his powers as well, because that's why Marshall has said that when he used to cast Fairy Fire, or when he casts any of his other spells, it gives off a sort of a fuchsia or sort of reddy, purpley, pinky purple glow. It's because it's fuchsia. It comes from Lady Aranth, and so that's why there's that connection there. So it was another sort of indicator there that as soon as he opened the book, that it had one of these fuchsia flowers within it. So that was a nice little touch. I'd come up with a little rhyme, because again, whimsy, the Fae, they love their rhymes. Also adds a sense of mystique as well, so that when Leobrin signed his name within the book, as it said, this tome now belongs to, and hesitantly he signed it after that happens, and then this little rhyme appears, and basically to confirm that the pact has been made. And pact is essentially a contract, so he had to sign a contract. So it was a nice little touch, nice little character moment. I enjoyed it. I think the rest of the group did as well, and sort of embellishing that moment. As I'd said in the last campaign diary, I think with moments like that, with extra features that come at certain levels, if you can, and if it's suitable for your campaign, I think it's really worthwhile to use that mechanic and sort of turn it into something. So, as I've given an example, and it hasn't happened yet because Fleeting has not been here this week, was having him actually taking his oath. As paladins, when he gets level 3, they take an oath, and so rather than just mechanically saying, okay, they're going for this oath, right? They get all these oath powers, and off you go. Let's make them actually take that oath. Let's do the whole ceremony, that kind of ritualized behavior. Let's make that into a set piece. Let's make something actually happen there. And so when that does happen, be sure that I will be making the most of that. So that was a nice little character touch and contract signing, and that wasn't the only character signing contract signing by a character within session 16, as Seth had been looking to for quite some time. His original purpose of why he was going to Burekrin was he wanted to hunt a basilisk, as he'd been contracted to do so by the cloaked man. He doesn't know the identity of this man, and the man seemed to wear a mask. But he was hired and was paid quite a lot of gold or promised to be paid a lot of gold to hunt down a basilisk and to retrieve and salvage certain parts from the basilisk and send them back to the cloaked man for his use. So he's been quite keen since the start, really, to not only hunt down that basilisk, but then to get the parts delivered. And because of events with the party, he kind of had to put the basilisk stuff to one side once the basilisk had been defeated. But now he saw the opportunity, and so James decided to negotiate with Jackman, the proprietor at Flaming Jacks, for the use of the wizard bouncer Grunt, the half-orc, to go and retrieve these basilisk pieces and take them and deliver them to Calas on Seth's behalf. Seth has a contact in Calas. In fact, he has a whole crew of contacts from the Knight's Teacher, which is the pirate ship which Seth has served aboard for quite some time. Calas, which you probably wouldn't know, is one of the larger towns within the entirety of Burekrin along the south coast, but it is known to be a place that is basically overrun with pirates. And quite a corrupt town. It's kind of poo-pooed by the rest of Burekrin society. They kind of see it as a kind of a bit of a scummy and not particularly approachable location. It's not a place that they would want to holiday in, for instance. But it has proved a good spot for Captain Burns and the crew of the Knight's Teacher to hole up and wait for Seth to deliver the parts, as they are sort of clued into this contract. So the idea is that Seth has hired Grunt to deliver the basilisk parts to Captain Burns of the Knight's Teacher, who will then take them on to the Cloaked Man, who's somewhere in Isk. So now he cannily decided to get a contract signed with Jackman for the procurement of Grunt and his skills, which is great because it was one of those things that I think it was going to hold up the party quite a lot. Calas is geographically a long way away from where the party are. It's nothing to do with where the rest of the party are going, so it's convenient. I think a wise decision by the player to then use the other NPCs you've got around you and get that delivered. Whether it'll be successful or not remains to be seen. Well, what is interesting is that this kind of budding friendship, or possibly more, as the party have hinted, between Grunt, the half-orc bouncer, and Elenia Matiz, the militaristic elf who was looking for her grandmother and was waiting in Flaming Jacks as she'd tasked people to look into it. The party, in fact, found her grandmother's remains down in the Rat King's caves, delivered the news to her, and delivered her spellbook, grandmother's spellbook, to the granddaughter, Elenia, which was much appreciated. But Grunt, being a wizard and a half-orc, is very interested in the spellbook and wanted to copy the spells himself. So that has already been kind of set up in the last couple of episodes, as Seth has sort of suggested this to Elenia, and she's kind of gone along with it. And so now, because of the amount of spells that need to be copied over, it's going to take quite some time. And so Grunt has kind of used this as a little bit of an opportunity to get Elenia to come with him on this trip, so he can spend more time with her. So we shall see how that blossoms or not. We shall see further along. It's nice as well that we've got the players taking an interest and possibly caring a little bit as to whether a relationship between two NPCs actually works out, rather than just being interested in their own affairs. That's a quite nice thing to see. So once the contract had been signed, aside from that, Flaming Jacks was pretty much taken care of for now. The group spent their last morning there, a little bit stilted, a little bit awkward. And this is because of recent events has basically caused Malar to fall out big time with Seth, as Seth has taken a hold and trust in this medallion that seems to speak to him from an ancient god of some variety, which encouraged the group to partake in a dark magic based ritual to bring back their fallen comrade Naeris, the high elf sorcerer. Managed to bring her back through a dark ritual, but Malar thought this is not the way of the Eight. This is unnatural. This is very, very bad and nefarious, and so has consequently fallen out with. He fell out with most of the group, but he seems now to have sort of healed the rift with most, but still there's sort of won't bury the hatchet yet with Seth. And this kind of confrontation actually within the party is really nice. Now, that might sound really strange to hear, but actually as a DM to then see conflict in the party so that they occasionally don't agree, they occasionally don't gel together, or they don't do things in the same way, or they deliberately sabotage each other, as long as it's kept within limits, so it doesn't end up being a campaign of just players just kind of dicking each other over. It can work really well for flavour, but also just because conflict and drama makes things more interesting. And whilst it's very convenient for the party for them all to get on, actually, even though it's inconvenient, I think it's more compelling storytelling if these characters do fall out and they do have the disagreements and they do go about things in different ways. It kind of adds more variety, and after all, variety is the spice of life. So yeah, if there is, if you sense there could be a conflict between characters because, for instance, just on a moral level, their outlook on the world differs, and so. When you bring a problem to them, one character may think one thing and the other character may think something entirely different, that's entirely in opposition to that first character's viewpoint. That creates great drama. So from a storytelling point of view, that's great. It's obviously a lot easier in films and in books and other media like that, where everything's pre-scripted. Because you can ensure that doesn't get out of control. With role-playing and in games such as this, it is much more difficult to gauge that, and you can't have that much control because obviously it's ultimately down to the players. So I'd say don't let it get out of hand, but it certainly is a very useful tool, and actually to see the characters come into opposition can create some very interesting moments, and for the plot as well, for the story, can take things in interesting directions. So if you do see that as a DM, I would embrace it, and embrace it to an extent. And just keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't get out of control and sabotage what you're trying to do. Other than that, it's great, so keep it up. So anyway, with this kind of heated debate between them all, it's actually more of a terse kind of cold war between the two of them. The group, after having their breakfast, then decide to head on out towards Hilberg, and it's been. This was time when they were going along this route, just to remind them of the outside world, as they'd been, as the players had been exploring the Rat King's cave and defeating rats and so on within there for the last 5 or so sessions, so quite a long time. So it was good to sort of to then get them out of that and into a different environment again, and remind them that there is a big world out there, and really to kind of really to bring that home for the players, actually, that the world's a lot bigger. And so, because it may have felt very small and confined and contained within the last few sessions, now their horizons are broadening. So it was important to get that across, and that's why I kind of took lengths to go into the description of the world they were seeing. Long form, thinking ahead, sort of long form storytelling does pay dividends, and you would have seen that, I hope, in this episode, as one of the characters that has been cropping up at Flaming Jack's it was a black dragonborn in full plate armor who had been desperately trying to get into Flaming Jack's and hadn't been allowed in because of problems with his papers due to being a dragonborn, which it's a bit of an awkward, hostile situation because of the Burikrin-Rachir War, and Rachir being a dragonborn kingdom means that essentially all dragonborn have been tarred with the same brush in Burikrin, and they're treated with hostility and suspicion unless they have documentation to prove they are in fact residents of Burikrin. So since I think the very first session, I made it clear to the players that there was this black dragonborn. He was trying to get in, and the bounce wasn't letting him in. And now the players didn't actually didn't engage in much sympathy or empathy, or even engage with this character at all when he was first introduced. They were quite apathetic, really, and tried to not get too involved, assuming that if the bouncer's not letting him in, it's the bouncer's call, and perhaps even that they wouldn't want to not be let in, so let's not piss off the bouncer, which is quite an understandable thing to do. But it meant that then when I reintroduced this character in this session, that you even saw, I think, with James and Dan going, hang on, do we know this one? And in fact, yes, they had met him once before. Rexland Swordclaw, who was a member of the Order of the Broken Fang. Now, it wasn't mentioned much in the session, but just so you know, the Order of the Broken Fang is an order of knights that was founded in the Second Age of the Manylands. They were founded after the Burikrin-Rachir War. They were founded as an organisation to combat monstrous and unnatural beings. It was following. It was after the Rachir War followed the Demon Crisis, in which there's a lot of lore which isn't written down anywhere currently, not anywhere that you guys can see it anyway. I'm eventually putting stuff up onto World Anvil, but there is only so many hours in the day, and we have a lot of stuff going on at the moment. But essentially, the Demon Crisis was when a lot of portals opened up to the Nine Hells throughout the Manylands. As a result of that crisis happening, the Order itself was formed to combat this, and since have existed to keep check on the borders between civilization and the unnatural wilderness. So they'll take on undead, monstrosities, fiends, devils, all that sort of thing within their realm, within the material plane. They will look to vanquish them. They're having some problems themselves at the moment, but due to mostly funding. Because of the war between the Cold War, should I say, between Burikrin and Rachir, and all of the money that's been invested into mining and putting more forces on the borders and so on, it has also meant that the Order of the Broken Fang has not been able to generate as much income itself. It's been trying to generate revenue itself. But as it's not getting support from the Burikrin Republic anymore, it means that their order can't take on more responsibilities, and this is proving a problem, obviously. But it's because the order see their cause as just, see their cause as essential for protecting society from the unnatural wilds and from the other evils that may lurk in the world, which it seems the Republic don't take seriously or have not even seen. So Rexland Swordclaw is recently being promoted to Knight Sergeant of the Order. There are quite a few Knight Sergeants. It's not a particularly high rank, but it's high enough that you are allowed to go out and recruit others if if the need is there. And he has been tasked, as newly promoted Knight Sergeant, to look into apparently a contact had been in touch with the Order, saying that they needed their help due to some unnatural beings in the area. Rexland didn't know any more information than that, but he was due to meet the contact at Flaming Jack's. Unfortunately, he couldn't get in. Now, Malar has been able to put 2 and 2 together, as he was interrupted when he was trying to sleep in one of the booths in the pub by Giselle Shepherd, a buxom farming lady who asked if he, in fact, was a member of the Order of the Broken Fang, and that she had been told to wait there for him. And so putting the 2 together, they actually, fortuitously, they had no idea that this was the case. Because they had sent Grunt away, it meant there was no bouncer to stop Rexland from entering Flaming Jack's. So they seem to have done a workaround without actually meaning to. When I originally had written that in, I was envisaging that Rexland would be held in sympathy by the group, and they would help him to enter, and persuade the bouncer to let him in, or in fact pass on the message to Giselle themselves. Neither of those things happened, and that's absolutely fine. That's one of the things as a DM you've got to work with, is that things don't always go the way that you plan them to, because free will. Players can do whatever they want to do as long as you allow them to, and I don't want to railroad the players either. So if they go in a different direction to what you were expecting, fair enough, you just work, you make it work in a different way, and it seems that actually they made this work for themselves. So yes, Rexland was patrolling the path between Hilberg and Flaming Jack's in the hopes that he would encounter Giselle along the way. Now, it seems that he's been unsuccessful in that, but in that time he has also been hunting other monstrous beings, and so this is where the only combat actually of the session happened, was because he had found a group of giant spiders within Half-Light Forest, and he managed to sort of pursue them and chase them out into the open, which is where they came across the party. Now, on first glance, I didn't realise quite how deadly giant spiders can be mechanically, because it was demonstrated here that actually with characters of this level that they can be pretty deadly. Due to the fact that in one bite against Seth, so it's 2d8 plus something piercing damage with the bite, then the character also has to make a Constitution saving throw, or they'll get poisoned and also take poison damage. Just take poison damage, which is another 2d8 poison damage. So a lot of damage there, and what had happened was I rolled high, and so the poison damage was enough to then bring Seth to 0 to knock him out. And then the other effect comes in, because if the character is knocked out by the poison damage, they take half poison damage if they succeed on the save. So this can still happen even if you succeed on the save. If you're taken to 0 hit points by the poison damage, you are then poisoned, and when you awake, you are paralyzed as well, and this effect lasts for an hour. So it's pretty nasty. In addition to this, the giant spiders also have their web attack, which has to be recharged, so it can't happen every turn necessarily. But when the web attack, it's just a roll to hit, and if it hits, it restrains the character to the spot, so they can't move. They can attack, but they have disadvantage, and attacks against them have advantage. So the combination of those two things, yes, it makes complete sense for a spider, that would be how they would hunt. But equally, it's very difficult if the party get on the wrong side of a web attack followed by a bite. They're in serious trouble at level 3, and that clearly was the case this time. Fortunately, there was only 4 spiders and 6 party members plus Rexland Swordcore, who dashed into the rescue as well. But even so, a challenging encounter. I mean, if you're going to have one encounter within the whole session, might as well make it a good one. And it turned out that this one, although on the face of it I thought was just a throwaway random encounter, actually was quite an interesting one. I think it worked well. So once this was taken care of, this was a perfect opportunity for Rexland to introduce himself and what he was after and what his cause was. And the party directed him back to Flaming Jack, said, yep, the way is clear, because you can now do that because we've sent Grunt off on a mission, so brilliant. So that all worked out really well. But Rexland will be back, do not forget that. Because, as I was talking about earlier, with characters having their moments to embellish certain character traits as they are given to them at higher levels, so Fleeting Look has yet to take his oath. Now, with Rexland Swordclaw being a paladin himself, he can, of course, carry out the ceremony and enable Fleeting Look to take the oath. He would be, because he is, as a paladin, a religious man as well. It means that he can carry out that kind of ritual, as I specified to the group in an earlier session. Not any religious figure can do this, only somebody of a rank of a priest or higher, but also this applies to paladins of that order who are of a certain rank. So a knight sergeant would be a high enough rank, which means that they have the authority from the authority given by the divine to carry out those particular kind of oaths. Otherwise, that would mean that Malar could just carry out the oath himself, and given that he's still a relatively low level, he's only a deacon, that felt it wasn't earned. That felt that wouldn't be quite enough. So unless the party found some other means, Rexland may be the one to carry out the ceremony to let Fleeting take his oath. So we'll look forward to that. Anyway, once he was taken care of, the group headed on towards Hilberg. And this is where just started seeding a couple of little plot hooks for the group. First of all, they saw some butchered sheep in the fields, along with some other sheep that were alive and a farmer. There were, I say farmer, a shepherd, obviously. So the slaughtered sheep is seeding in a little adventure, because there is something that seems to be hunting and killing things around Hilberg. The group haven't touched much on it yet. They haven't heard much about this yet, as they've only just arrived. But that is a neat little plot hook and adventure, which I predict will be coming into the fore in the next session. So look forward to that. But also, there was a time to connect with family and meet new people. And there were two different families that got their moment in this session. First of all, was upon arriving at Hilberg, there was the gate guard, who was in fact a cousin of Brucon. Now, Brucon, played by Bart, has been he's a changed man. He was once a frat boy type, a party boy, a rich kid with too much time on his hands, who then sort of reformed by joining the monastery, the Barkfang monastery in the north of Burikrin, to try and sort of repent for his ways and atone and basically a bit of self-improvement. And since leaving the monastery, he has gone via the alias of Brucon Ree, sort of renouncing his inherited birth title of or birth family of Rumbleguts. And of course, this was blown out of the water straight away upon his cousin Oddo Wayland Rumbleguts, half cousin, recognizing him at the gates. And immediately, it was like, oh no. Which again, it was a nice bit of levity. It was a fun moment, and it also again reminded not only the viewers but the party that of Brucon's backstory and of what his motivations are and where he's going. So it was nice to have a moment there. It also means that I think familial ties really help to ground the party into a location. And I don't mean as in grinding them into a location. I mean as in just to make them, give them an anchor point and give them something to latch onto, to make them feel at home almost. And I think I think by the first person they're seeing being Oddo, I think that worked quite well. to have him there to do that. And he's also a useful source of information for the group as well, because he's not likely to hide a lot from his own flesh and blood. Even more so than that would be the aunt and uncle of Naeris, who she had never met, but had been tasked with going to stay with because she was being hunted by the Red Mages back in Kothar, and so it was essential for her to escape and to go and seek refuge with Uncle Brynlan and Aunt Argentia Summerfall. So she wasn't sure really where to start, other than that they were in Hilberg, and so it fortunately came up in conversation because the group are still on the hunt for Lady Helene Grenforth and her abductors. They now know that Lady Helene has been turned to stone, and they know that that her captors seem to have headed off in this direction. And so, asking Otto if he'd seen anything revealed that that some adventurers had been this way with a life-size statue, and then they were asked, well, where would you go with it, with a giant statue? And it was suggested, amongst other places, of trading it. You could, if you wanted to transport it quicker, you could get a cart built, which you could employ the carpenters at Summerfall Carpentry, because Brynland Summerfall would be able to build one for you. And suddenly you saw with Marta or with Naeris being like, what? Huh? Who? Oh, and immediately made a beeline for the carpentry. And so we had this lovely little moment, and a fair play to Marta as well with role-playing this as well, was that you could actually picture the moment she's standing outside the carpentry about to meet her aunt and uncle for the first time, after so many days and weeks of travelling and adventuring and almost coming a cropper, and just having that final step and hesitating, not sure whether you want to take that step, whether it's worth the risk, whether this endeavour will have been worth it or not, because as soon as you walk through that door, you can't come back from that. You can't not meet that. You can't go back to not knowing them. So it was a big moment, and I think Marta played it very well. Went into the workshop, should I say. And Uncle Brynlan was a very cheerful half-elf, and very pleased to see her. Not quite as over the top, and pleased to see her as Aunt Argentia, which was she was a very proper lady, which was very fun to play. Not only for her first introduction, but because of what happened in the mystery moment towards the end of the stream, where I asked all of the players to leave the room except for Marta, because this was a moment just for Naeris, and it would ruin things for the rest of the party if they were to know about what transpires in that little event. So I won't talk about that just yet, but I will signpost it before I do, in case any of the party members are watching this. What I will say before that, though, this was a time that the group got to tie up a couple of loose ends. So tying up the Basilisk storyline, essentially by delivering, getting somebody else to deliver the parts, ties that up nicely. They reconvened with Callie Shallows last week, and so that had tied up the manufactory's slave storyline, at least for now, by giving the ledger to Callie, meaning that she now has proof that, or she believes that she has proof that Pat Galwright, the owner of the manufactory in Halfrage, has been employing slaves. She theorised that there would be proof in the ledger that he had purchased slaves, and slavery is actually illegal in Burikrin. So that was all the evidence that she needed. The party handed that over to her. That was taken care of. Grunt's gone off to collect the Basilisk parts and deliver them, so that's that taken care of. And there was one other little storyline and loose end which the party really hadn't had much opportunity to explore yet, and that was delivering a letter for Greenblade, the human ranger who'd been patrolling Halflight Forest, to a lady named Henlath, a half-elf named Henlath, who turns out is actually the wife of the barman at the Trickle Inn. Sorry, the proprietor even of the Trickle Inn, known as, although it wasn't said in the stream, his name is Slander Blueview, and Henlath is actually his wife. And as Henlath kind of made clear, she was very reticent to to receive a letter from Greenblade, who she referred to as Loxley, because basically what she was hinting at was that they used to have something. They used to be. They had a romantic. I'm being very coy right now. They had some romantic interest and may have done a few things together one time, and it seems that Greenblade has been persistent since then. But she is married and she can't have him involved. She kind of seems to doesn't want anything to do with him, it seems. Yet she also accepted the letter nonetheless and kept it for herself, so showing that perhaps there is still a modicum of feeling there. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, perhaps there is still a modicum of feeling towards Greenblade. And also made pains to for the players to note that when she was talking about this, she was holding her tummy as well. Basically, spoiler alert, that's a hint that Hennath is in fact pregnant, and so it seems that she wants nothing to do with Greenblade, perhaps because that's going to cause problem. Well, it would in fact cause problems for her marriage and for her lifestyle, with her life with slander at the inn. But there may well be further developments on that little storyline. Let's see how the party go about it. See if they explore it further or not. But it was, again, that was a nice little loose end. The letter's been delivered. That's passed up, and that means that it was in fact the payment for Greenblade assisting them finding the cave and finding Lady Helene, although he hasn't really helped in that regard yet. The payment was for them to deliver the letter on his behalf. And now I think from the group having delivered the letter and having met Hennath, I think they can now understand why Greenblade asked them to deliver the letter for him rather than doing it himself. Because you think, I mean, you could just do it yourself, this would be easy. But that's why, essentially, because he can't set foot in the inn because because Hennath doesn't want to see him, for one thing, and also I don't think Slander's going to take too kindly to seeing Greenblade a love rival as well. So there's an interesting situation brewing there, literally and figuratively. So finally then, the big upset, the big moments in this session. First time ever I've actually asked all of the players except one to leave the room. It's the first time I've done something that secretive within the stream, and hopefully it works out well and the payoff happens. And that will only happen, I think, if the players do not find out. So if you are a player, or you are friends with a player, don't tell them this bit. And if you are a player, stop watching it right about now. Okay. So in this final moment when Naeris is led up to her room, which Uncle Brennan has said that Aunt Argentia has been fussing over and making up her room for several days. This is true. The reason, however, Uncle Brennan doesn't know this, he's completely oblivious to this, is because Aunt Argentia is not who she seems. She has in fact been replaced by a doppelganger. There you go. That's my little reveal for you. A doppelganger who has been working for a red mage known as Damon. Now, for those of you watching the stream, you would have seen and heard that Marta straight away went, Damon, because he is a half-elf red mage from her backstory who has taken a specific interest in Naeris, and so has been looking for her since. He's one of the reasons that she had to escape from Kothar. So the fact that he's here now and has essentially abducted Naeris, and by getting the doppelganger to knock her unconscious, is worrying, to say the least. What are his intentions, though? What could he possibly want her for? I'm afraid I can't tell you that right now. But what I can tell you is, should the rest of the party want to bring Naeris along on their adventures for the next month, because Marta, the player, is away for the entirety of November, one of the reasons we've kind of pushed her to one side for the moment. If they do want to take her along, they can do that, but it won't be Naeris, it will be the doppelganger. And so I'll have a job on my hands to then kind of keep her away from combat and things like that, without arousing too much suspicion, but also wanting to just leave little breadcrumbs so that the group start to understand that something's not quite as it seems, that there is something fishy going on. So there's going to be a delicate balance doing that, and hopefully I'll pull it off, and if I do, let me know. To just that balancing act between not being too obvious but not being too subtle. It's got to be somewhere in the middle. I'd say subtle, not too subtle. Just little bits that if they're paying enough attention, they'll go, hang on a minute. Ultimately, though, if they have no clues at all, there will be a moment, I'm sure, in the future where the doppelganger will reveal itself, whether it's in the guise of Naeris, or it's in the guise of Art Argentia, or in fact anyone else, because doppelgangers can do that. It's going to be very interesting. It also sets up another little adventure, and that is finding Naeris, because now she's been abducted. No idea where she is. She's unfortunately unconscious, so there was no way I could say it on the stream where she was going, where she is. But it's going to be, I think, a little while before the party even realise she's gone. I'm very excited, very much looking forward to seeing where that goes. And I hope you are as well. Anyway, that is pretty much everything, I think, for session 16. That wraps that up nicely. So we begin the next session on Monday with the group gathered inside the Trickle-In, deciding on the next course of action. I believe the first thing they're going to do is look for the dwarves, as they haven't actually found them yet, although they know they're within Hilberg. And then they'll take it from there. Anyway, that's it for today's campaign diary and Q&A. Join me and the rest of the players here, usual time, Monday from 6 p.m. for our next session as we delve deeper into what's going on in Hilberg. Until next time, guys, stay safe and have a great weekend.